I'm leaving you and moving to Palm Springs with my 25-year-old babe. I'm taking all our money with me. The text came through at 3 a.m. local time in the Persian Gulf, just after I'd finished a 14-hour shift on the rig. My name is Theo Harrington. I'm 52 years old and have spent the last 27 years working oil platforms across the world. My hands were still greasy when I opened the message from Krista, my wife of 18 years. I stared at my phone screen as another message appeared. A screenshot of our joint account balance showing 0.02 where $142,000 should have been. She'd added a little kiss emoji like this was cute somehow. I didn't throw my phone. Didn't punch a wall. Just sat on my bunk in the cramped quarters I shared with 2 other riggers and typed, "Sure. Good luck." Then I turned my phone off and went to take a shower. The guys noticed something was off the next day when I skipped breakfast and went straight to work. Jackson, my second in command, kept glancing over during safety checks but knew better than to ask. We had 16 workers depending on us to keep this floating metal city safe and operational. Personal problems stay personal. During lunch break, I checked my email. Krista had already filed for divorce and claimed I'd abandoned the marriage by working overseas too much. She'd hired a lawyer named Bradley who specialized in high-asset divorces. They were requesting spousal support based on my excessive income. She even had the nerve to add that her emotional support partner was now living in our house in Odessa. I closed my laptop and went back to work. Didn't mention it to anyone. That night I wrote one email, not to Krista, but to my cousin Brendan, an accountant in Houston. "Time to activate Protocol Winter," I wrote. That was our code phrase from years back. No explanation needed. 3 minutes later, his response. "Already on it. Don't respond to anything until you're stateside." I had 2 more weeks on this rotation. 2 more weeks of 12-hour shifts in 110 degrees heat, while the life I thought I had dissolved back home. The guys would have understood if I'd asked for emergency leave. But what would that accomplish? Better to finish the job and draw the paycheck. When I turned in that night, the rig supervisor Vincent stopped by my quarters. "Everything stable?" He wasn't just asking about the drilling operation. "Everything's under control," I replied. And it was more than Krista would ever know. I met Krista 19 years ago at my buddy's fishing supply store in Odessa. She was 31 then, working the register, full of jokes about city folks who thought catching bass was complicated. I was 33, already 10 years into oil work, home between contracts and helping my friend stock inventory. We got married 11 months later, fast, but it made sense at the time. I'd already built a good life. Owned my house outright from a lucky investment in a small producer that got bought out. Had a steady career path on the international rigs. She said she admired my stability, my focus. I admired her spirit, the way she could talk to anyone. The rotation schedule was always the challenge. 2 months on, 1 month off in those days. But the money was exceptional. I could earn in 6 months what most people in our town made in 3 years. We agreed it was worth it. She'd hold down the home front. I'd build our future. Around year 12, the first cracks appeared. Small things. Complaints about missed birthdays. Questions about whether I really needed to take the Saudi contract. Comments about how her friends' husbands were always around for dinner parties. Looking back, I should have seen it. The year I turned 47, she stopped asking when I'd be home. Stopped sending photos of what she was doing. Our video calls got shorter. But I dismissed it as the natural evolution of a long-distance marriage. Comfort replacing excitement, routine replacing uncertainty. Last Christmas, I came home to find she'd redecorated our entire house without mentioning it. New furniture. New paint. New everything. When I asked about it, she just said, "I needed a change." I didn't ask what kind of change she meant. 2 months ago, I noticed transfers from our joint account to one I didn't recognize. "House repairs," she explained. "The foundation needed work." I drove by the house before leaving for this rotation. No sign of construction. But there was a black Audi I'd never seen parked in our driveway. For weeks ago, she stopped answering my calls altogether. Just texts saying she was busy with a new project. I almost flew home early then. Instead, I convinced myself to trust my wife of 18 years. 3 days ago, our neighbor Harold sent me a photo of a moving truck in front of our house. "Thought you should know," was all he wrote. I didn't reply. Just waited. Sometimes the best thing a man can do is nothing at all. Sometimes the truth reveals itself. I finished my shift the day after Krista's text and headed back to my quarters. The satellite phone rang. It was Brendan. "You sitting down?" he asked. "Just tell me." He didn't sugarcoat it. "She's been planning this for at least 14 months. Regular transfers to a separate account under her maiden name. Started small. $2,000 here, $3,000 there. Then bigger amounts over the last 90 days. Total of $214,000 moved. Not just the $142,000 from your joint account." The room seemed to tilt sideways for a second. That was significantly more than what showed in our joint savings. "There's something else," Brendan continued. "She changed your beneficiary designations on the life insurance policy 6 months ago. And she took out a $40,000 home equity line of credit against the house. Forged your signature on that one." I sat on the edge of my bunk, suddenly aware of the deep hum of the rig's generators beneath me. 18 years together. Nearly 2 decades of shared life. And she'd been methodically erasing me from it, piece by piece, for over a year. "The guy?" I finally asked. "Devon Forrester. 25, like she said. Former personal trainer. No significant employment history in the last 3 years. 3 previous relationships with women over 45. Each ended within 18 months. I didn't need the pattern spelled out. "And Theo." Brendan's voice dropped lower. "There are credit card charges for 2 one-way tickets to Palm Springs dated for next Tuesday." That was 3 days from now. She hadn't just left me, she was disappearing. Trying to vanish with everything before I even made it home. I hung up and sat in the darkness of my quarters for a long time. Didn't turn the lights on. Just sat there watching memories rearrange themselves in my mind. Like puzzle pieces falling into a different picture. The late-night phone calls she'd take outside. The sudden interest in fitness 3 years ago. The complaints about money despite our comfortable savings. What hit me hardest wasn't the betrayal. It was the planning. The calculated, patient dismantling of our life, while smiling to my face. While accepting the money I sent home. While telling me she missed me. Something shifted inside me. Then the hurt crystallized into something harder. Colder. I walked to my locker and pulled out my laptop. Accessed the email account only Brendan and I knew about. Logged into the holding company we'd established 8 years ago, after I watched a colleague lose everything in a divorce. Winter Holdings. My grandmother's maiden name and the creek running through our property combined. The account balance loaded, $1.6 million. I'd been diverting 70% of my income there for 8 years. Legal. Declared on taxes. But separated from our marital assets through the corporate structure Brendan had designed. I sent a single email to my lawyer in Houston. Proceed with Operation Cold Return. Then I closed my laptop and went to the mess hall for coffee. For the first time in days, I felt hungry. I landed in Houston 38 hours after my rotation ended. Brendan met me at the airport. Handed me a burner phone and a folder of documents. She's been calling your regular number nonstop since yesterday, Brendan said as we walked to his car. The bank froze the account she transferred the money to. Standard procedure for large, irregular transactions. They're requesting you come in person to verify. She didn't know I was back. No one did, except Brendan and Thomas. Thomas was my lawyer. But that wasn't the most interesting update. Brendan pulled out his tablet and handed it to me. A thread of messages between Krista and someone saved as D. I skimmed through them. Talk of a fresh start. Jokes about me being stuck offshore while they lived it up. Details about a house in Palm Springs they'd already put a deposit on. But one exchange from 2 days ago stopped me cold. Krista. Bank froze the money. Need Theo to verify in person. D. He's still offshore for another 10 days. Tell him your mom's sick. Get him to authorize it. You're still his wife. Krista. He's not answering. D. Try harder. We need that money before closing next week, or we go with Plan B. Krista. I don't like Plan B. D. It's just insurance money. He works a dangerous job for a reason. Accidents happen. I handed the tablet back to Brendan. My hands were steady but cold. These admissible? I asked. Yep, he replied. She used your Apple ID when setting up her new phone last year. Never changed the password. Everything backs up to your cloud account. We went straight to Thomas's office. He'd already prepped the divorce filing, a criminal complaint for forgery on the equity loan, and an emergency motion to freeze assets. There's a wrinkle, Thomas said once we were seated. She filed a domestic violence claim against you yesterday. Says she left due to emotional abuse and financial control. Claimed she feared for her safety. I blinked. That's insane. I've been 6,000 miles away for 7 weeks straight. Thomas nodded. Doesn't matter. It's a legal tactic. Help sway the judge, justify keeping the money. Her attorney's pushing for an emergency restraining order and exclusive use of the home. She wants me barred from my own house while her boyfriend moves in? I asked. Exactly. And worse, she already spent the equity loan. Moved it to an LLC registered under Devon Forrester. 3 days after it hit the account. I took a slow breath. What are our options? Thomas didn't hesitate. We counterfile. Fraud, forgery, alienation of affection, criminal conspiracy, based on the texts. We moved to freeze all her accounts and that LLC. He slid a form across the table. We also filed this. I read the title. Motion to dismiss Stevie claim, evidence of perjury. What evidence? I asked. Thomas gave a thin smile. Your badge data shows you've been on that rig for 7 uninterrupted weeks. Passport stamps confirm it. I've subpoenaed your phone records too, nothing that supports her story. Not a single hostile exchange. I signed the documents. One more thing, Thomas said. We need you to act surprised when she's served. As far as she knows, you're still offshore. The element of surprise matters. I nodded. I can handle that. As I stepped out of his office, my phone buzzed. It was Krista. A message to my regular number, please call me. It's an emergency. I need you. I didn't answer. The trap was set, but not by her. That night, I stayed at Brendan's place. Slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, I logged into the security camera system I'd installed at the Odessa house 3 years ago, one I still maintained remotely. Either Krista forgot it existed or assumed I couldn't reach it. The footage was clear. There he was. Some 20-something lounging poolside with a drink from my whiskey cabinet, wearing what looked like my old college sweatshirt. He was sitting at my. He was on my phone, laughing, feet up on the outdoor furniture I'd built by hand. While I watched, Krista walked into the frame. She looked rattled, pacing as she talked. I couldn't hear the audio, but her body language said everything. Things weren't going to plan. Brendan walked in with 2 mugs of coffee. You need to see this, he said, flipping open his laptop. He'd spent the night digging deeper into Devon Forrester's history. What he found changed everything. He's done this before, Brendan said, voice low. 3 times. He turned the screen toward me. Same pattern every time. Meets a woman, usually married, always well off. Relationship starts. She leaves her husband, drains whatever she can. They move off together. Within 18 months he's gone, So is the money. The screen showed articles, court docs, social posts. 3 women. 5 years. Each one left financially wrecked. One still paying off tens of thousands in debt Devon ran up in her name. There's more, Brendan added, quieter now. He was once a person of interest in the death of a girlfriend's ex-husband. Suspicious car accident. 6 weeks after the divorce. The man had driven that same road for 20 years. No charges filed. But the silence that followed said enough. My phone buzzed. Krista again. Regular number. I let it ring out. You should hear this, Brendan said, playing the voicemail. Theo, please call the bank. Her voice cracked, like she was crying. It's a misunderstanding. I was just moving the money like we planned, into a safer investment. But the bank froze everything. I can't get to anything. Please call and tell them it's okay. I'm scared. We never discussed anything like that. Her performance was polished. 2 weeks ago, I might have believed her. She's scrambling, Thomas said when we met him for lunch. The house closing in Palm Springs is in 5 days. Without that cash, they're sunk. What's next? I asked. Emergency hearings this afternoon, Thomas said. Judge Winters, she doesn't tolerate false DV claims. We've got your proof of location, and the bank's cooperation. Filed for full recovery of the funds already. Then he slid over a manila folder. You should see this too. It was from Harold, our neighbor. Photos of movers loading up furniture. Your heirlooms, Thomas confirmed. They're emptying the house, planning to run whether they win in court or not. I stared at the photo of my grandfather's rocking chair being wheeled down the front steps. Closed the folder and pushed it back. Change of plans? I said. Both men turned to me. I'm going home. Theo. Thomas started. Not to confront them. I said. To watch. From Harold's. I want to see this for myself. Thomas looked at Brendan, then back to me. And when they're served, I added, I don't want to be hiding behind court papers. I want her to see me. I want her to know it's over. Thomas nodded. We'll arrange it. As we stepped out of the restaurant, a message came through on my burner phone. It was from Harold. They're packing your grandfather's desk now. The one you restored. Figured you'd want to know. Some things are worth more than money. And some betrayals leave scars deeper than theft. This was no longer about revenge. It was personal. The 6-hour drive to Odessa gave me time to think. Thomas coordinated with the sheriff. Papers would be served at 9 a.m. Sharp. Brendan handled surveillance. I'd be watching from Harold's, across the street. He welcomed me with a quiet handshake just after midnight. Retired petroleum engineer. Worked rigs for 30 years. No explanations necessary. She know I'm back? I asked once we were inside. No idea, Harold said. They've been at it all day. Packing what's valuable. Leaving junk behind. He pointed toward his window. The window gave us a perfect view of my driveway. 2 moving trucks had already come and gone. Big ones are scheduled for tomorrow morning, Harold said. I nodded, taking it in. Anyone else show up? I asked. A woman with a clipboard yesterday, looked like a real estate agent. That caught me off guard. They're selling the house? I asked. Looks that way, he said. She was taking photos out front. I called Thomas immediately. He promised to check the property records at first light. By 3 a.m., sleep still wouldn't come. I sat at Harold's kitchen table, going through the file Brendan had compiled. Page after page of evidence, bank transfers showing Krista slowly siphoning our accounts dry, phone records tying her to Devon for over a year, credit card charges for hotels just a few miles from our home, on days she claimed to be visiting family. It wasn't just cheating. It was planning. Strategic. Cold. She hadn't betrayed me in a moment of weakness. She dismantled us piece by piece. By sunrise, Thomas had texted. Krista had listed the house with an agency 2 days ago. Asking price was well below market, clearly meant for a fast sale. And she'd forged my signature on the paperwork. At 8:30 a.m., I stood by Harold's window as Krista and Devin loaded more into his Audi. Smaller things this time. Sentimental. My grandmother's silver frames. The antique watch my dad gave me before he passed. At 8:45, a large moving truck arrived, 3 workers jumped out and walked up the path. Right on cue. 10 minutes later, an unmarked vehicle pulled in behind them, boxing them in. 2 sheriff's deputies stepped out, joined by a woman in a blazer. Thomas had sent a court officer to oversee the order. "It's time," I said. I crossed the street slowly as the deputies rang the bell. Krista answered. Her face shifted from annoyed to unsure the moment badges were shown. "Mrs. Harrington, we're here to serve you and the individual on site," one of them said. I stayed just behind the shrubs, waiting. "Devin," she called, voice tightening. He stepped into view, looping his arm around her like this was his house now. That's when I stepped forward. Her face froze. Then came the fear. Then something colder, calculating. "Theo?" she whispered. "You're supposed to be on the platform." "Surprise," I said, giving a slight nod to the officers. They handed over the documents. Emergency restraining orders, asset freezes, a form of fraud complaint, and a motion to cancel the forged home listing. The divorce filing was right on top. "You can't do this," Devin barked, puffing up. "She's scared of you. We filed a domestic violence, dismissed this morning," I cut in. "Judge Winters reviewed it personally. Didn't sit well, considering I've been overseas for 7 weeks straight." I let that sink in. "She was especially interested in your little insurance conversation. The one about accidents happening." Devin's face went pale. Krista stepped forward, her voice breaking. "Theo, please, this is all just a huge misunderstanding." "You mean protecting our investments?" I said, motioning to the truck. "Or selling our home behind my back?" She couldn't answer. "You have 30 minutes," the officer said, stepping in. "Personal items only, clothing, toiletries. Everything else stays. Court inventory pending." I turned and began walking back across the lawn. "Where are you going?" Krista called. I didn't turn around. "Home." 3 weeks later, we sat in the courtroom. Thomas and I on one side. Krista and her lawyer across from us. Devin was nowhere to be found. He vanished 2 days after being served, taking what was left of Krista's cash and the jewelry she hadn't packed yet. A familiar ending, exactly as Brendan had predicted. The judge took her time with the evidence: bank statements, forged signatures, synced messages, location data. But when she reached the part about Plan B and my life insurance, she stopped mid-sentence and looked straight at Krista. "Mrs. Harrington, are you aware of the criminal penalties for conspiracy to commit insurance fraud?" Krista's lawyer leaned in, whispering frantically. "It wasn't like that, Your Honor," Krista said, her voice cracking. "Devin was joking. I'd never save it," the judge cut in sharply. "This court is here to divide assets and rule on the dissolution of marriage, not to untangle criminal intent. That part will come later." She continued through the documents, head shaking more than once. When she finished, she laid down her glasses. "In 30 years on the bench," she said, "I've rarely encountered a clearer, more deliberate case of financial deception within a marriage." She turned back to Krista. "You drained accounts, forged legal papers, and attempted to flee the state with nearly all shared property." Then she looked at me. "Mr. Harrington, while the existence of your holding company could raise questions, this court finds your actions consistent with legal asset protection. You paid your household's expenses, filed accurate taxes, and made no attempt to defraud anyone, only to shield your assets from risk." Her ruling followed swiftly. Everything Krista transferred would be returned to me. The house was reaffirmed as solely mine. Her plea for spousal support? Denied. Most satisfying of all, The judge referred the forged documents and fraud evidence to the district attorney. Possible charges to follow. Krista tried to speak to me on the way out, but I didn't stop. Some endings don't need a final word. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of my cabin near Missoula, Montana. 40 acres of pine and mountain ridge I'd quietly purchased 5 years back under Winterlight Holdings. Krista never knew it existed. The case against her had closed. She took a deal. No jail time, but 5 years probation and a court order for restitution she'd probably never pay. Last I heard, she was living with her sister in Tulsa, working part-time retail. Devin? He'd moved on, to a divorce physician in Arizona. His pattern still intact, his trail as messy as ever. I'd taken early retirement after 27 years. That was enough. Between smart investing, the income from the gas royalties down in Arkansas, and my own discipline, I didn't need more. Harold still called once in a while from Odessa. I'd sold that house too. Too much pain. Too many ghosts. He shipped me my heirlooms and donated the rest. A clean break. That afternoon, a letter arrived, final paperwork from Brendan. Winterlight Holdings was officially dissolved. Taxes handled. Assets settled. Mission complete. I sat on the porch swing I'd built that summer and poured a quiet glass of bourbon. The sun dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the meadow. For the first time in a long while, nobody needed anything from me. No oil rig. No crew. No wife pretending she cared. Just me and the breeze through the pines. Then my phone rang. It was a recruiter from Canada, an oil firm looking for a veteran to consult. Good pay. Little travel. Use my decades of experience, they said. I'll think about it, I told him. And I meant it. But not tonight. Tonight was mine. For the quiet I'd fought for. For the freedom I'd earned. For the life I was finally living, on my own terms.